Under your mighty wings, you shield me from evil and uphold me with your right hand. From Susan. And we have, you keep me safe when I am being persecuted. What else could we put in there? Though we are trying to figure out how to reopen, what are other troubles people face? You're right, Lori. It is kind of reminiscent. It has some echoes there of the 23rd Psalm. But though we are trying to figure out how to reopen, damaged family relationships. You could say, though I haven't talked to my brother in 25 years. And, or, however specific it needs to be. So I have an awful diagnosis from the doctor. Though I am experiencing the anguish of depression. Though my church community, our church community, I should say, has known great loss. You can really apply that to anything, which is where I think the Psalms kind of gain their power. And then verse 8. Yeah, or Maria, though I'm trying to minister effectively to our congregation during COVID, right? And then 138, the Lord will fulfill his purpose for me. Your steadfast love, O Lord, endures forever. Do not forsake the work of your hands. What's another way to say that? So let me point out something here about this verse, which I think is really cool. So do you see, I'm going to put this in yellow, and I'm going to put this in, we're going to do green. Who is the psalmist talking to in the yellow part?
Himself.
Yeah, himself or the other people who are with him or her, right?
Yeah.
So this is either meant like to booster your own confidence or booster or as a witness to the congregation that's gathered. In green, who's the psalmist talking to?
Directly to the Lord.
Directly to the Lord. Yeah. And there's another this is also directed either internally or towards other people, right? Verse 6. Here's what I find fascinating about verse 8, right? The Lord will fulfill his purpose for me. So in other words, like I've got confidence, right? That God's going to complete, and realize all God's hopes and dreams like through me, and in me. And at the same time, it closes with this petition, don't forsake me, God. Right? So we have this witness, but we have this little internal experience where it's like, please, God, please. Yeah. So this is, confession that we're utterly dependent on God. Another witness to God's goodness. I have confidence that God will complete through me all that God hopes to. God, your faithfulness and perfect commitment last forever. Don't abandon what you started. All right. So we're going to go through this and I'm going to try to read something that's cohesive and we'll see what happens. I give you thanks and praise with my whole heart. You're ahead of everything else. Because of your love and faithfulness, your steadfastness, your reliability, loyalty, dependability, because of our brotherhood and sisterhood, I lay everything at your feet, God. You will never unfriend or ghost me. Through you, I'm born again. Just like on the days of Pentecost, everyone hears your words in their own language. Your awesomeness inspires singing. Nobody's going to keep you to themselves. They can't help but share you. You are different, but not distant. Though we are trying to figure out how to reopen, though so many of us have family strife, so many of us are trying to figure out how to minister effectively during this COVID season. Under your mighty wings, you shield me from evil and uphold me with your right hand. You keep me safe when I am being criticized or persecuted or just worn out. God, we are utterly dependent on you. Everyone trust that God is doing what God says will happen. God, don't leave us alone. Never, never abandon us. Isn't that cool?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love doing that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if we can talk a little bit about the discipline of gratitude. And to do that, I want you to pay attention in yourselves about how that feels to kind of reflect on the goodness of God. Because I think we've all just practiced gratitude a little bit, right? How does that feel, like to give God thanks?
I personally feel so gifted by him allowing me to preach. So, I mean, I get as much from it as I give. And I often wonder if that balance is correct, because I feel like I get so much from it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, wow, the strength that gives you, you can do anything when he gives you that word. Just, boy, I just don't know how to put it all in my words. For a minister, that's funny. He makes you so happy to do it. I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I think it's time to express our gratitude because we spent a good part of the last year wondering why God was so mad at us. Or I've heard this from a lot of our congregants. Why is God punishing us for this? What have we done? And there's a lot of doomsaying and gloomsaying going on in the last 14, 15 months. And I think it's time to thank God for those of us who got through this unscathed. And we're seeing that we're approaching the end of the tunnel and the light is so bright. We should be grateful to a God of wondrous grace and glory. And this is a good time for gratitude.
So I want to share with you a little bit about the spiritual effects of gratitude, because believe it or not, there's research. Go ahead. Oh, maybe I just missed something. So let me, I'm going to share with you. Are you guys familiar with the work of Brene Brown?
Yes.
So I want to share with you just it's like a 3-minute video clip. And she talks about sort of the relationship between joy and gratitude and the direction of it, and how maybe we've been misconceiving it. There we go.
I think the relationship between joy and gratitude was one of the most important things I found in the research. I wasn't expecting it, but what I found, 12 years of research, 11,000 pieces of data. I did not interview in all that time a person who would describe themselves as joyful or describe their lives as joyous who did not actively practice gratitude. And for me, it was very counterintuitive because I kind of went into the research thinking that the relationship between joy and gratitude was, if you're joyful, then you should be grateful. But it wasn't that way at all. It was really that practicing gratitude invites joy into our lives. And when I say practice, I think this is the part that really changed my life. It changed my family and the way we live every day. When I say practice gratitude, I don't mean kind of like the attitude of gratitude or feeling grateful. I mean practicing gratitude. These folks shared in common a tangible gratitude practice. They either kept gratitude journals. Some of them did interesting things like at 1, 2, 3, 4, like at 12:34 every day, they said something out loud that they were grateful for. They, one of the things that we do, like we say grace at dinner. And so now after grace, we go around and everyone in my family says something they're grateful for. I mean, and what's interesting is when we first started, I have a first grade son, Charlie, and 8th grade daughter, Ellen. And at first I thought, and we've been doing it for a couple of years now, like they were like, oh God, Mom. And there was a little like, this is, are you experimenting on us? There was a little bit of that. But now what's interesting, even after we did it for like a couple of weeks, that on those crazy busy nights where we're trying to like get to soccer and piano and homework, and Steve and I are just like, we say a quick prayer and we start eating, and my kids are like, whoa, what are you grateful for? And it's been extraordinary because not only absolutely does it invite more joy into our house, it also is such a soulful window into what's going on in my kids' lives. So there are some days where my 8th grader will be like, I'm joyful that there's a huge thick wall between my room and my brother's room, something just very, honest. But there are other days she'll say, she had a friend whose mother recently died. And she said, for a month she would say, I'm just so grateful that y'all are healthy right now. And so not only did it make us all more aware of what we had and more willing to slow down and really be thankful for the joyful moments we had, but it let me know where she was emotionally in her life. And my son is always, I'm grateful for bugs, I'm grateful for frogs, but sometimes he'll say, I'm grateful that you picked me up early, or, I'm grateful that I finally understand adjectives, So there's a great quote that says, it's not joy that makes us grateful, it's gratitude that makes us joyful. And it's by a Jesuit priest. And I guess I was just amazed to find that bubble up so strongly in the research. It's life-changing.
All right. So I want to give credit. You heard her quote at the end, that it's not joy that makes us grateful, it's gratitude that makes us joyful. That's actually by a guy named David, and I'm typing it in the chat too, David Steindl-Rast, who's a monk. He has a TED Talk that's great, but we're not going to watch a 15-minute TED Talk here. I think that's a little beyond the scope here. But what did you all think of that?
Gives a new perspective on practicing gratitude. To see or to hear what difference it's made is the ability to say, yeah, I can add that to my daily routine.
I think it's humbling. It brings us back to reality.
I think it's a wonderful tool to give to busy families these days. There's something that sounds so simple, but it could have, I like what she said about it, gives her a window into where her children are. I think it's a tool we can give our families to use.
I want to share a couple other things, and you're going to see me sort of flip through. I have all these windows open on my browser because I just want to demonstrate to you the preponderance of evidence that there is in the secular world. You know, and God tells us we have, you know, scripture, tradition, reason, and experience, right? I mean, that's all that we get to draw from in order to make sense of what God is doing. And I think we're finally sort of seeing some scientific evidence of some deep spiritual truths. And I think that that's really profound. So I'm just going to share my screen again. So this is his YouTube, David Steindl Rast, not YouTube. This is his TED Talk. The University of Southern California has a study, you know, on the profound benefits of gratitude in relationship to health. This is Johns Hopkins.
Jenny, is your screen, try your screen again.
Oh, are you missing the screen? Okay.
Not seeing it.
That's because I didn't click share screen. I'm sorry. So this is the University of Southern California, but practicing gratitude can have profound health benefits. Johns Hopkins, if you want to change the world, make your brain more grateful. And it goes in, this article actually goes into the link between when you practice gratitude, those dopamine receptors in your brain actually, or dopamine is released, which, you know, we know makes us happier. And the connection between gratitude and brain health and the effects on the world. This one, is this the Mayo Clinic? You know, like the #1 hospital in the world, I think, has gratitude articles on their website and the importance of it in just your physical health. They actually have a program called Discover Gratitude that they walk people through in order to improve their physical health. Runner's World says that you're going to run better if you practice gratitude because it affects your performance that much. Again, Johns Hopkins here actually has practicing gratitude, and this is part of their children's hospital website. So these are ways that kids can practice gratitude. And so there's all of this evidence, you know, that the stuff that we're seeing in Psalm 138 and throughout, I would say, many of the Psalms in the Bible is just the profound importance of gratitude. I mean, I think this is something that God has given us, right? That scientists are now tapping into, which is cool. I'm thinking we're going to do breakout rooms for maybe 5 or 7 minutes. We'll be back in less than 10. And I'm wanting you in your breakout rooms to brainstorm ways that you might have your congregation practice gratitude, or what a discipline of gratitude might look like. You know, like Brene Brown talked about at the dinner table you sit around, but there are so many other ways and other forms that could take. So if you want to brainstorm those together, that would be really great. let me do breakout rooms.
I'm ready, Jenny, whenever you're ready.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, here we go.
There we go. But yeah, I think they have to accept the invitation to join.
I think so too. Let me see.
They're
Pastor,
just-
do you need any help getting to the breakout room? I don't know if I can. Oh, let me see if I can move them. You know, Zoom is funny. It used to let you do stuff, but sometimes it doesn't now. Not joined. Yeah, it just says he hasn't gone. Don't think so. Pastor Naveen, let us know if you come back, okay? This is Deanna. Deanna will be in class. Good. Oh, good. Thank you. I was going to do that for you. Great.
What?
I was going to put the question in. That's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was.
Do you want to pop into any of them?
No, that's okay.
All right, great. I'm gonna run to the restrooms. That way I won't have to do that and I'll be able to stay with you a few extra minutes.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
Thank you. I loved that. That was the most. That was the most I've seen them talk.
Oh, really good. Because I'm like, oh, I feel like.
It's actually a luxury. So really grateful for all of the seminary candidates here who go on mission trips and how different it is in other parts of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Naveen. Naveen was and Dawn were just reflecting on gratitude, but particularly gratitude when you see things, when when things are taken away, or when you have the absence of something, how it can make you more grateful for what you do have. So in your breakout rooms, I want to hear what you talked about. What were some of the disciplines of gratitude or practices that you came up with? Go ahead, just unmute and talk.
Apparently having a stroke is wonderful, increasing the gift of having gratitude.
Say more.
When I mentioned it in my breakout room, one of my fellow people in the room mentioned that a family member had a stroke and said very similar comments and spiritual comments to what I had to say, that there's it's not so much a thankfulness, but it led me to a much more humble appreciation of understanding even more deeply what authenticity is and what really living is, and living your own life as opposed to being alive, and being in communion with God and the Holy Spirit, and being able to just love more greatly. And so, and really to me, the biggest realization, which I always knew and I had in my heart, but now I have fully in my heart, is that there isn't it's such a thin veil between life and death. And we're bouncing back and through that all the time if we're aware of it. And to me, that has just been such a gift to understanding. It's given me a greater appreciation for now when I read particularly Jesus and see how, how his behavior is depicted and the words he said, really where that's coming from, that awareness that this is a continuum, the awareness of the journey of keeping your eyes on Jerusalem. And so I'm going to start sermonating, so I'm going to stop. But really, that it just really opened up. And we also talked about, miracles sometimes aren't what people think they are. In the midst of having a stroke, who would have thought I would 2 years later would say that saved my life.
And as you say that, Kevin, I'm reminded of verse 7, which is, though I walk in the midst of trouble, right? We talked about that being so important.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You preserve me against the wrath of my enemies. Like, I mean, what could have come, right?
Yeah.
And you stretch out your hand and your right hand delivers me. I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that Rolf Jacobson also said is that in the Old Testament, gratitude without witness doesn't really happen, right? And what you've done, Kevin, right now is just given witness to that. It's not just this nice, warm, fuzzy feeling inside. It is a tangible, palpable witness to God. I am grateful for this. It's not just this thing.
Absolutely. It's just not words. It's, in fact, words cannot capture what I would want to express.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. What else? What other disciplines of gratitude or reflections do you have to share?
In our breakout room, we first, realized that there can be no joy without gratitude. So gratitude was a critical element in this whole thing. So we pretty much all pledged that we were going to do what we could to, when we did our pastoral prayers or prayers of the people, to spend more time on our joys and gratitude for things, because there are many out there. We're just so used to who's in the hospital and who's sick and who lost their job. And then there was also some talk of, for many of us, communion will be this coming Sunday, and insert a little extra into our prayer of thanksgiving during the communion ritual. Yeah.
I love that. I hadn't thought about either of those.
Is that a good idea? I like that one.
I love both of those. Other ideas about how you can fold gratitude in, or about how that might affect or other reflections.
I was in Kevin's group, and my brother had a stroke, as you know, 2 years ago. And now we hug. That is so powerful. It's wonderful. We never did that before.
Mm-hmm.
My family, but now we hug. That is, oof.
Any other reflections or ideas about how you might use gratitude or advocate for it?
In the group that excuse me, go ahead, Judy.
I am grateful that great minds run in the same paths. I am truly grateful because I think we shared, but we said you have to act out gratitude. It's not it must be active, whether it's spoken or an action, a gift in return. But anyway, that was, I hope, gentlemen, I did good by that.
I was hesitating to speak up, Judy, because I was hearing things we talked about and I was afraid they were listening in on us. It's just, you don't know what you got till it's gone. And, you know, trying to focus on the joys and the celebrations and the gratitude as well as just the concerns. And sometimes the concerns can be things that you're grateful for because of what they have done, you know, the progress you've made in the recovery or the, you know, whatever. So.
The things our group talked about was how helpful it would be to create something tangible with the congregation so that this idea of gratitude isn't just something we talk about on one Sunday and then goes away and we move on to the next thing. Just to create some kind of tangible something within the walls of the church so that when people come, they see it, they're reminded, whether it's gratitude rocks or something where people are encountering these, you know, the reminders of gratitude wherever they look.
Yeah, all this talk of gratitude reminds me of how many times I've read in so many scriptures that in our difficult times is the time to look for the opportunity to show gratitude to God for what he's going to bring forth from the difficulty.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we heard a little earlier also was that that's not only as a discipline to God, right, which is important, but it's actually part of that abundant life that God offers us, right? Like that's part of our joyful life. It's kind of the gateway in. Kim, you were going to say something.
I was going to say that, you know, the group that I was in, we were talking about how people are using what they call high-low moments. And that was kind of cool. You know, what was the highest moment of your day and what was the lowest moment of your day? And then also one of them has a Bible study that they start out each week. And where did you see God? And or where did you struggle to see God? So and we also talked about how we're grateful and how we can pray for each other. Also, someone said about sharing a memory and how we can be grateful in sharing that memory. So, and I said, I've been kind of preaching on being joyful and trying to, you know, keep that up and trying to just find the joy in everything, because every day we have something to be joyful for, even if it's a piece of chocolate. That's
chocolate.
Yeah. So I will acknowledge it's 3 o'clock. I'll stay a few more minutes because I did say one of my goals was to talk about how this might be a perspective from which you can approach the other scriptures in the lectionary text. So if you need to go, I understand, feel free to hop off. If you want to have that conversation, go ahead and stay. I can stay another 5 or 10 minutes or so and have that. If you're leaving, goodbye. It was wonderful to have you. And if you're staying for just a few more minutes, we'll talk more.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Goodbye. Thank you. So who here is doing, oh, we'll wait till people exit who want to exit. Who here is doing, let me see, who's here is doing Samuel and who here's, okay. So we have Jonette and Roger, you said you were doing Samuel also, right? And then who's doing 2 Corinthians? Kim, and then who's doing Mark? Anyone? Okay, a couple. So we have a couple doing each. So let's start with Samuel. So can somebody who's preaching Samuel just kind of do a quick summary of what that text is?
Well, you teased me right back at it at the beginning of the session. You know, be careful of what you wish for. But, I am going a little further than that because right in the middle of that is the God saying to Samuel, you know, they want a king because they rejected me.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah, and the connection that I see like so obviously with this text, and again, I haven't dug deep into that Samuel text recently, but the connection that kind of just stared out with me is this tradition in the Davidic Psalms of I called and you heard me, you know, and the way that you know God answers even sometimes when perhaps God's reluctant to, or even when God knows that this is in the face of, you know, something that we're asking for that's contrary to God's will, you know. Yeah, I know it's heavy, but that's what I
Very
mean.
heavy.
It's essentially,
Be careful what you ask for.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so Israel paid the price for generations afterwards,
Yeah.
for having a king over them rather than allowing God to be their king. And we do the same thing.
So gratitude also like lines us up, right? I mean, here's another thing it does. I mean, there's so much. I could write a book on this stuff. But the other thing gratitude does is, you know, it lines us up with God's priorities, right? It brings a sense of humility and saying, you know, I'm looking at verse 8 of what we read, you know, and it's that confession of essentially that we're utterly dependent on God. Like this isn't about us, this is about God and what God's doing. Jonette, you're doing the Samuel text also. What did you think about that? Oh, you're muted.
Yes, I'm just going to talk about that they wanted a king, and
yeah,
God said, you'll be sorry. This is what the king will do. And that's exactly what happened. And I think that's very current in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to add to that. Does any of this sound familiar?
Wow.
People haven't changed much.
You know, with the texts for Sunday, looking at all of them, they start with the gratitude of Psalm 138, and then you go to, here we had something wonderful from God, and we rejected it. Even there's even a Genesis reading you could use where Adam blames Eve, and you know, I mean, it's like
anti-gratitude text.
Yes, exactly. So you have a gratitude psalm, and then all these anti-gratitude texts to follow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I hadn't gone there, but you could. I mean, it would be
my goodness.
And juxtapose it that way, wouldn't it?
Yeah, even the Mark text.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's the Messiah. There's the Son of God, and oh no, he's got the devil in him. And who the heck does he think he is?
Yeah.
We don't know what we have. I don't think we know how to be grateful. Ugh. We're so human, aren't we?
We are human. Okay, 2 Corinthians.
Yeah. Where's that?
Anyone doing 2 Corinthians? Kim, you said you were. Do you want to summarize that for anyone?
Well, basically, I mean, for me, I kind of said you love God and you love him with all your heart and all your mind and all your soul and all your strength. And, but we don't live by the things that are seen. We live by the things that are unseen.
Mhm.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I think this Psalm and 2 Corinthians go together like this, because
Yeah, they do.
it's talk about thanksgiving for God's grace. And I think you could pretty much take everything we talked about with gratitude and use it for the for a 2 Corinthians sermon.
There's a great verse in the Corinthians. For this slight momentary affliction is preparing us for an eternal weight of glory beyond all measure. Very reflective of Psalm 138.
Isn't that great? Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm not preaching till July 4th, so I'm just hanging out here and all the good ideas all you guys have.
Yeah, if you haven't done a call to worship or an opening prayer or something yet, it would be very easy to take Psalm 138 and rework it into.
That's usually what I do when I plan the worship. I use the Psalm of that Sunday and take verses from it and rewrite it and make that my call to worship.
Nice.
That way I can get all the scriptures in without having to stop and read every single scripture.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so who's doing Mark? Okay, Scott and Julian, did you say you were doing Mark or no?
I haven't decided yet, to be honest with you.
No, that's fine. I have been at Tuesday and in a panic moment before, so so I hear that. Scott, would you tell us a little bit what Mark is about, if you want to just kind of summarize that?
So it's the story where Jesus is teaching. His family comes because they have decided he is insane and they're going to put him in the straitjacket and take him home. The authorities show up from Jerusalem and say that he is of the devil and he can't possibly be from God because he's doing things using the power of Satan. And Jesus turns it back around and says, how can a house be at war with itself? I must be from God, because I wouldn't be from Satan if I was trying to cause problems for Satan. And then in the last couple of verses, they tell Jesus that his family is outside, and he says, you know what? I don't know who my mother and father, or my mother and my brothers are. They're the people around me. So I haven't decided what to do with it, because this is one of those scriptures I thought I had a better understanding of than when I looked at it Sunday or Monday. And all of a sudden it wasn't making as much sense. But one of the things
I hear that. I've done that. I've done that on Tuesday. I'm like,
yeah. But one of the working titles that I had was Family Values ?
Yeah.
That's good.
But that's a way to lean into the discomfort of the text, right? Like one of the things we're taught in seminary so often is like, what is the trouble in the text? And if you can lean into that, you can have a real interesting insight. I have a colleague who preached and their opening title or their opening line is, the trouble with this text is that Judas asks a really good question. Like, I want to listen to that sermon, right?
That's how I started on Sunday. We used the hymn, Here Am I, Lord, Send Me. And we got to the sermon and I said, that's always one of my favorite songs, but I was reading some commentaries and the commentary said, the real heart of this message is what comes next. So I went back and reread it. And we're going to tell you to tell people to be deaf, dumb, and blind until there's only 10% of them left, and then we're going to destroy what's left. And I said, is that what we signed up for? Hopefully I solved that problem by the end of the sermon, but
Yeah,
we got to make them squirm in the pews, don't we?
So what are the connections between I see a lot of connections between Samuel and Mark in terms of the kingdom divided against itself cannot stand, just like Jesus is, or you know, which is what Jesus is saying, and then people essentially saying, God, we're rejecting you. We want our own king. You know, we want we want a person. We don't.
Yeah.
You know, we can't rely on you in that way.
We want to be like other countries. We want to have king too.
Yeah. Yeah. What are other connections you guys see between the Mark text and everything we've discussed so far? Are there any?
Well, I think, and this is just coming to mind, but the idea that Jesus said is, you know, my family is here with me, becomes a way where you can say, I have the family I need with me, no matter how much you're rejected by the ones that you had thought mattered.
Yeah. Yeah, and something I have when I read these texts, something I have to remind myself of is that Mark is written, I don't know, what is Mark, right around 70, 65, 70, something like that. And you know, this is a time of great persecution.
Yeah.
People are going to be betrayed by their families. You know, if a family is loyal to you and you're confessing this, they are at risk, right? And so the audience here isn't today's audience. The audience is a severely persecuted community where if you are going to be allegiant to Christ, your family may have to reject you in order to stay alive.
True.
And I always have to remind myself of that when I read these sorts of texts. And talk about a day of trouble, right?
We don't know trouble.
No.
Not.
I do, but I'm not sharing about it.
Yeah.
I know about trouble, trust me. You know,
Yeah.
there's, I think we've all experienced some trouble at some time in our life.
We have.
You know, and I think that we either look to someone or someone. You know, we if we're following the ways of God and we can follow what He's telling us to do, then it's not going to be the easiest road, but it's going to be the road that we need to travel. Whether we lose our families or whether we lose, you know, people who love us, you know, we struggle through it though, don't we? Because we love our Lord more than we love all that, you know.
I can just say, Jenny's heard this before from me. I'm a veteran of Vietnam, and we were surprised with our orders to go. We had no notice, just pack your stuff, you're gone. And my flight crew, there were Jews, Catholics, Methodists, Lutheran. All of us never talked about it. On that day, every one of us said the same thing. Where's the chaplain? That brings it together for me.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't matter what we were, who we were. All we thought about that was reaching out for Him to carry us through.
Yeah. Well, that's a good way to end. That's a good way to end. It was lovely being with you. Thank you for
Thank you.
Thank you for staying and for participating. It was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you. So creative. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for
Yes.
going.
God be with you all.
Take
God be
care.
with you, Jenny.
And also with you.
Blessings, everyone.
Be safe.